Okay. So again, this is our group agreements. Confidentiality actually absolutely applies. Speak from a place of honesty. Everything should be kept between us. We did get consent so that we can kind of use this video and upload so that others can benefit from this information at a later time. If you have a question or anything like that, feel free to raise your hand, or I think right now at this point it's Tony. So go ahead and just jump in anytime you want. Okay, don't have to worry about raising your hand. Fourth, honesty. Always speak from a place of honesty, as honest as you can be. Make sure your cell phones are on vibrate or they're put away. We're going to use I statements. Just to let you know, I statements are speaking from your own perspective, because we don't want to call people out. We don't want to say you. We don't want to, kind of say, well, those people. Always speak from your own personal experience. And then we have ELMO. Jenny, do you know what ELMO stands for?
No, I don't.
Oh, there I am. ELMO stands for enough, let's move on. So it's not the it stands for enough, let's move on. Sometimes people in group, progress groups, they talk and it kind of starts off on topic, and then after about a minute or so, it goes way off topic, and then it goes on in a ramble. And so this is a cool way for everybody to just kind of keep everybody in check. And you don't have to say anything other than ELMO. And that lets everybody know, okay, enough, let's keep moving. And so feel free to ELMO me, Tony. It's absolutely okay. Like right now, I'm going to keep on going. So is it okay? Can we all agree to these agreements so that we can move forward?
Absolutely, no problem.
Perfect. Yay.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, backwards. So here's our agenda for today. And it looks like we could end early, depending on how far we go and how much you guys want to contribute and share and all of that. We're going to do an introduction. We're going to discuss what is toxic positivity. Like, what really is it? That's kind of like a new term, but we're going to discuss that. We're going to go over the 7 signs of toxic positivity, and then we're going to deal with how to deal with toxic positivity. And then we're going to discuss empathy versus sympathy so that we have a better understanding. We're going to wrap it all together. And then we'll do maybe like a 15-20 minute, just group therapeutic hypnosis, very basic relaxation. And then we'll talk about it once we get out of the hypnosis, and then we're done for today. How does that sound?
Sounds awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Great.
Great. So introduction, my name is Anthony Contreras. I'm a clinical certified hypnotherapist. And I studied at the College of Hypnotherapy. It was I did 2 years there, actually. And so I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist. So I do know modalities involving mental health disorders. And I was educated on the 2nd year. I did a 2nd year and got an Associate of Occupational Studies in mind-body psychology. I've worked maybe the past 2 decades, almost 2 decades, not quite, but almost 2 decades as a health educator, as a strength-based case manager, as an HIV testing counselor, as a group facilitator, you name it, I've done it. And I've worked with all sorts of populations. I've worked with the LGBTQ AI plus community. I've worked with at-risk youth. I've worked with unhoused populations. I've worked with people that suffer with substance use disorder. So it runs the gamut. And some of the modalities that I work with when I do private sessions is like acceptance commitment therapy, which is a little like cognitive behavioral therapy. I do positive psychology, depth psychology, parts therapy, internal family systems, all of those things to help resolve people's conflicts and help them be able to live the life that they truly desire and as a healed individual. So I'm really That's me. Jenny already introduced herself. Jenny, would you like to introduce yourself one more time?
Sure. So my name is Jenny Dow. I've been running my own practice for the last 8 years. And besides energy healing, which involves frequency and vibrational healing through instruments, crystals, also various modalities, music, sense. So I work in all of those aspects to bring your body in full healing mode, and also mental healing, because it all encompasses your mind, body, and soul. I also do feng shui and individual readings, if you like psychic medium readings. I've done paranormal investigations in the past. So it just depends on what you need to be cleared out, clearing and blessings. I do that also for your home and office. So it just depends. Each client is different. I'm focused on their individual needs. And they'll come to me with, unique situations that they need help with, either individual wise, family wise, or structure wise. So
I didn't know
different
you did
modalities.
clearings. I didn't know.
Yes.
I didn't know you did paranormal. That's interesting. That's
Yes.
kind of cool. Wow,
Yeah.
you
So
learned
that's
something new.
my so that's my like psychic ability side, where I can tap in and talk to spirits for you. Mainly our spirits come to us from our guardian angels, or also from our ancestors. They speak
Okay.
to us all the time, and so you just have to know to tap in. I also do hands-on healing. It's called Longi Vitology, where you use different chakras in your body to heal you, and then you can learn to also heal yourself. So just
Awesome.
different, modalities. And then Anthony and I have known each other for a length of time, so we know each other pretty well. So now
We went to
we've
high school together.
combined.
We
Yeah,
actually went to
so
high
we've
school
known each other
together
30.
35 years ago. Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So now we combine forces, and we have in-person sessions one Saturday every month in West LA.
It's like Wonder Twin Powers, Wonder Twin Powers activate.
Activate. Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let's keep moving on here. So first of all, what is toxic positivity? What is toxic positivity? And Tony, because you're the person in the room, first of all, there's no wrong answers here. Okay. So use your gut, use your intuition, trust yourself. What is toxic positivity as you understand it?
Like it's hard being on your own. To me, toxic positivity, what does it mean? Yeah, it's a hard question. I think I work with young people, so I'm looking at it from my own background. So I'm an educator. I work with young people between the ages of 14 to 19, putting in interventions to improve their attendance at school, the reasons why they can't go in. A lot of the time, it's usually poor parenting, or it's psychological issues due to various lockdowns we've had. I live in London. I work in London. So I would guess, and I'm completely wrong here, but I'm assuming that toxic positivity is where things go right, but from a negative viewpoint. Is that correct? Am I in the right ballpark? So perhaps where you put interventions in place, they don't quite work, but there is an outcome, but not in the way you want it. Have I said that correctly?
You're in the ballpark. That's perfect. That's perfect. And actually, I'm going to show you the definition of what toxic positivity is, so that we're all on the same page. So it's the excessive and ineffective overgeneralization of a happy, optimistic state across all situations. So what it looks like is always trying to focus or always trying to be happy to the point where we're ignoring our emotions, we're ignoring situations, we're ignoring pain, we're stuffing it down. It becomes unhealthy. It's an unbalanced overgeneralization. And then it leads to guilt feelings of saying, when I do or don't, let me say it that way, when I don't feel happy, I feel guilty because I should feel happy. I'm supposed to be happy all the time. And, we'll talk about how that comes around and how that has its effects. But the process of toxic positivity results in the denial, minimization, and invalidation of the authentic human emotional experience. So you were there, good. The 7 signs of toxic positivity. I'm going to go over the list, and then we can kind of talk about them individually if you'd like. It's really a state of being that some people fall into. So again, the first one is hiding or masking your feelings. So there's a tendency for people to want to put a facade that says life is perfect, I'm perfect. And, if you think in terms of like, Instagram, Facebook, there's this idea of life is great, but really it's going haywire behind closed doors. 2 is forcing yourself to move forward. So let's say you do have some sort of traumatic experience or painful event or some sort of something that occurs and it throws you off a little bit. And instead of sitting with it and allowing yourself to feel it, what you end up doing is you end up saying, no, never mind, I'm fine. Yeah, okay. And then you try and push yourself to just move forward. And we'll talk a little bit more about the effects of that in just a second. Again, feeling guilty for feeling your feelings, minimizing others' feelings. So this can look like, what would be a good example? It would be, let's say Jenny comes to me and she says, you know what, my relationship isn't doing too well. And I'd be like, oh, but come on, you don't have it that bad. Look at all the people that get divorced. Look at all the people that have, so it's very dismissive of other people's feelings and experiences. And we'll talk about that just a little bit too. So trying to give perspective, which is exactly what we're talking about there, right? Shaming others for not being positive, right? So we can see that in terms of having others either approach us and put us down for not being happy all the time. Like, come on, why aren't you happy? Like, you have everything. Like, you have a job, right? You have a car, you have a relationship, like you have a place to live. Hello, look on the bright side. So it's comments like that. And then number 7 is brushing things off, just completely, which to me sounds like avoidance. It really is kind of just brushing everything to the side, and it's putting on, again, that facade and the pretend. Are there any questions in going through this? And is there any one of these that you would kind of want to go a little bit more in depth with?
No, I think you're going fine at the moment. They all kind of, in my own personal experience, I've had traumatic events throughout my life, and they all kind of, each one of those 7 steps does relate to me and part of my work as well. So I'd say no, it's absolutely fine at the moment.
Do you feel comfortable if I ask you about your traumatic experiences? Is that
No,
if you feel
that's
comfortable?
fine. No, not at all. I'm a very open, honest person.
Thank you.
No, so that's fine. So I had so where do I start? So I had a traumatic childhood. I was one of 4 children. My parents were from India. They came and settled in London, and I had a very hard upbringing in the sense of there was no real love in the home. We went through, I had a difficult childhood. I had a lot of negativity towards my father. He was an alcoholic, and I would see and witness domestic violence between my mum and my dad. He would relay that on me. My dad died at a young age, around 42, 43, from excessive alcohol drinking. So even though I went through my normal life, growing up and going to college, going to university, I had friends in the sense that they were, friends from college and university, and so my life carried on. If there was like a line which you follow throughout your life, you do the norms, which is you get your high school uh, graduation, call it in America, don't you? You go to university, go to college, etc., etc., and you get a job, you get married, you have kids, and you have your own place, that sort of thing. Those things were followed through, but throughout my life, what I found was I became very sort of towards the end, sorry, after I finished education. I became more indecisive. So I have even though I do well in my job, in my own personal experience, I'm very indecisive. I always dwell on what I should and shouldn't do. I cannot move forward. I'm very much stuck where I am and have been for the last 30 years. I'm 49 now. Even when I got married, my wife is, unfortunately, she has paranoid schizophrenia. She's on medication. My daughter has some learning difficulties, although she's prospering in school. And I guess for around 10 to 15 years since my wife's been on medication, I've always felt I could have done better, been a better father. I could have done more for my daughter. I used to work 2 jobs to earn more money. My wife didn't work anymore, so I've struggled financially. So I've had a kind of up and down life, but I have met society's indicators. I've got a degree, I got a job, or I've had different jobs. It pays quite well. I've got a car. I've got 2 actually. I've got a house. So those things are there. And yes, from an outside person looking in the UK at the moment, we're going through a cost of living crisis. Everything's going up. I'm sure it's the same in the States. We've gone through COVID. You couldn't go out. So when others look at me, they think, oh, well, he's got everything that I want. But when I look at them, I sometimes feel like I have a few friends who aren't married, who don't have kids, and I look at them and I think, their life is better than mine. I've not had the best life, and I've not done things for myself. I've always had to put my family first, which is what a father should do and a husband should do, or a son. But to kind of move forward, I've never really sort of done anything for myself. I've stagnated for the family, and my health has suffered. I recently got diagnosed with diabetes, so I've suffered kind of a lot of sort of consciousness. I keep myself going. I think because I work with services that provide interventions, that's helped me to understand what families go through. So my life has been up and down. So from my early childhood right through to I guess even now, though I am a lot better, I can't let go of the past, and I always make choices which I think are wrong, and I sometimes feel I've made the wrong decision. For example, I'll give you a clear example. A few years ago, we wanted to build an extension, so extend our house. I didn't do that, and now the cost of doing something has doubled in less than 5 years because of material costs and labor costs. And I keep kicking myself for not have done it before. Whereas most people, when I look at friends, some of them can just move forward. I can't. I'm always making those life choices. Even if I do something, I regret it. And if I don't do it, I regret it. It's always that sort of thing for me. So I've just sort of trundled through life in the last 20 years like this. And along the way, I feel like my marriage has suffered because of how my wife is. And, we do have love, but a lot could have been done better. Financially, we could have been better. So I kind of regret myself. But what I do also is I draw strengths from that, from my own experiences. So when I work with young people, I know I'm not someone who's just done a degree and I'm from a rich family and just telling them. I can put theory to practice and apply those skills to help others. In the job I do, we also prosecute parents for children's attendance. So if they don't go to school regularly, by law, we can prosecute the parents or carers because that is the law. And that's something I don't like doing, because ever since lockdown, I've seen families suffer. And to do a job where it involves financially making someone's life miserable makes me miserable. And I've done this job for 13 odd years now. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, and I've over the last few years, what I've noticed is I've shied away from friendships. I don't like mingling with the family as much as I used to. I enjoy working more than I ever did before. So I spend a lot of time working. That's become my forte. And I just don't find life. I find solace in spirituality sometimes. So I've kind of, you've probably heard of a group called the Brahma Kumaris. They do a lot of spiritual healing, that kind of thing. It's a big sort of movement. So I kind of listen to their talks and stuff like that. I've had hypnotherapy done. I stop and start a lot of but the problem is I stop and start a lot of things. So I've done hypnotherapy. It hasn't worked for me, and the reason why it hasn't, I've tried two different hypnotists. I can't believe I can be hypnotized. I've done things where I've tried to make myself happy. It's like I'm always the first to do something. I want to go to the gym and lose weight. I'll do it and then I'll stop, and then I'll pay for the year and I'll considerably moan about it. And I look back at life and think, why didn't I do it? I'm always that's kind of me in a nutshell. I'm sorry I've waffled on, haven't I?
No. This
In
is,
nature, I'm
you know
a
what,
nice guy, but I think I've depressed myself and stressed myself for so many years that my health has suffered, and I just can't move forward, and I can't let go of the baggage. I blame myself for everything that's happened to my family. I blame myself for everything that I should have achieved and I didn't. And I kind of feel I'm 20 years later than I should have been when I had opportunities before. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, Anthony. I hope that kind of gives you an overview.
I have some follow-up questions, if that's okay.
Go for it, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like actually growing up, in terms of, you said you had 4 siblings, you're one of 4. Where did you fall in that one of 4?
So I have an older sister who's 1 year older than me. I have a sister who's younger than me by 1 year. So I was the second oldest, if that makes sense. So
okay, you were the second.
Or the middle of the 3 older ones. I have a brother who's 8 years younger than me. So I was second eldest, sorry. But I was the oldest son, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm also curious about what was, alcoholism. First of all, I got to give you props, man. It sounds like you lived in a lot of chaos growing up.
Yeah.
And something happens when we start. I love that you did hypnotherapy, because really what we do is we tap into that subconscious narrative and that story that has been written since we were born. And if you grew up in an environment that was chaotic, everything needs to be chaos in order for you to feel comfortable. That's your comfort zone. I want to ask you a little bit about your connection with your mom. What was that like?
I was quite close with my mum. There is this thing about daddy's girl and mummy's boy. They always say throughout life, most kids relate to the opposite parent. I had a very good relationship with my mum. So from a young age, I bonded with my mum quite well, more than my dad. But I saw a lot of trauma in my mum. I used to see my dad hit her quite a lot. My dad he used to work and stopped working, so my mum had to do 2 or 3 jobs to bring up the children. So when my brother was born, it was hoped. Having looked back on it now, which is something I do sometimes reflect, that my brother was an accident, but I think it kind of helped my mum to gel with my dad. But she was the kind of breadwinner. She had to work a lot. She paid all the bills, and it was hard to see her do that because your mum was never there half the time. I was with the siblings more than anything. But when she was there, I saw my mum witness a lot of hardship throughout her life, even to the point where my brother, who now is thankfully a better person, but when he was growing up, he lost his father when he was about, I think that must have been about 24, and he was about 15. So he lost, and I was just married when my father passed away a year on. And my mum, how do I put it? He went to a dark place. He had bad crowds, bad friendship groups. They weren't very good in terms of supporting him. He did a lot of bad things, and my mum felt a lot through it. She suffered a lot in that sense. So it's almost like she had a double heartache with my dad passing away and my brother not being, perfect, I suppose, is in inverted commas. But I was close to my mum. I still am close to my mum, but my mum helped me in a certain way, you know, like I know I felt really bad for her, what she did, but you've got to understand as well, it was a culture that I came from as well, you know, Indians being as they are, it's very shut away. My mum wouldn't talk to a lot of people, you know, it's kept in the family. That was a lot of hurt for her to hold, but she was very strong, you know. I am not a strong person in that sense. So yeah, that was me and my mum very close as well.
So one of the things that I think you mentioned that
Mm.
really stood out to me, and I wrote it down. Mom wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know, she was, not only did she have a marriage that was volatile, she had multiple jobs. Her energy was split between the marriage, the jobs, and your siblings,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And so did you ever get the feeling that perhaps you were just ignored, that you didn't get enough attention that you needed growing up?
Um, it's a hard question. I think the reason for that is when you've lived an experience, it's hard to compare against someone who's been different. I guess I had what I would deem as a normal. I think it's normal. I don't know. I mean, it's probably not as normal as other people, but I've not lived their lives. I can only relate to my own experiences. I think um, I found different ways of coping if I look back now. And one of the ways was to skip school, the truant or bunk or whatever you call it in America. So towards the sort of end of my primary school education, I started to rebel in a certain way. You know, I think that was probably it. I got what we call caned here by the head teacher, you know, hit with a stick and stuff. So I think I found rebelling as a way of kind of coping, you know, with friends and stuff. I in terms of sports and that, I don't remember recalling doing much sports. I think I lived a good enough childhood. I think. I mean, the memories weren't great. I can't even remember them. But in the place where I grew up, I had a lot of friends and neighbours, and my interests. I can't remember what my interests were computers when you know computers had just come out. And I think, yeah, I think towards the end, I found by not going to school, escapism was
Right.
a fundamental factor for me. And yes, I got into trouble and beaten by my dad and stuff. I used to enjoy getting hit by my mum. I don't know why, but she was more. Where my dad would use a belt and stuff, my mum would use a flip flop. So it was almost like it was cruel punishment, but it's kind of like you'd hope your mum punished you, not your dad, sort of thing. But that was pretty much it for about 10 to 12, 13 years before I started what we call senior school.
I want to share something with you. I'm going to
Yeah,
bring
sure.
up a term and just see if you're familiar with the term and if you are, you know, what your understanding is.
Sure.
You know, they're co-regulation, but it's called, it just escaped me right now. It literally just flew out of my head. But what it is babies don't know how to regulate their emotions.
Mhm.
And so moms have to teach the baby, and it's not like they teach the baby. The baby, if it's crying, if it's fussing, if it's hungry, whatever it is, its anxiety level is way up here.
Mm. Yeah.
And so what mom does is mom feels the anxiety of baby and says, what's wrong? What are you doing? Are you hungry? Do you need a burp? Do you need a changing? And they go through the list. And as they go through the list, they check off the little boxes. And as they check off the boxes in their mind, they start feeling a little bit more relaxed. And so as they relax, baby follows them. So mom meets
Yeah.
them, right? And then mom will start coming down, and then baby goes down with them to a nice relaxed state. And this is what we call co-regulation. And so if your mom wasn't there a lot, it's possible that you didn't have anybody to teach you how to regulate your emotions. And so this could lead to anxiety. This could lead to second guessing, self-doubt. This could lead to self-sabotage, right? Also, I would imagine, I'm curious, what kind of words did you experience? What were you told by your mom and your dad? What kind of phrases were they using in reference to you?
In terms of words and phrases, you must do this, you must do that, was what my dad would say. You know, you must go to school, you must clean your room. He was strict because his father was strict, because my grandfather was a military commander in India from the army, so my dad was brought up that way. So it was very, not necessarily regimented, but my upbringing from my dad was more strict. So the words and phrases I remember is you must, you know, you must do this, you must do that. From my mum, it was almost like do what your dad says. You know, that's the sort of phrases that I remember. So it's almost like you do this, you do that, you must do this, you must do that, do what your dad says. And that was pretty much it, you know, throughout a few years. And I just remember that when I didn't, it was almost like my dad wouldn't talk to me for a few days, and my mum would say, "You've upset your dad," you know, and that would upset me because my mum would be upset.
Wow.
So my dad wouldn't talk to me, and then if he did talk to me, he would sometimes say, you know, he was disappointed, and even though I hadn't done anything wrong, or if I can remember, I can't remember my primary school years, I do apologize, but I just remember that side of things where he kind of, towards when I was growing up, I clashed more with my dad, but in the younger days, I just remember he was always disappointed. It was almost like his disappointments were taken out of me, if that makes sense, and I didn't understand why. And it was all, and yes, that's it. Yeah. So the other questions I would say is why. So I said why a lot. It's actually come back to me now. It's really interesting. And my dad never gave me an answer, and my mum never gave me an answer. So yeah, I think if in terms of phrases, you must do this, and you must follow your father. So that was the kind of things I remember more than often. Yeah, more often than not.
I have a theory. If you're interested in hearing it, I'd love
Go
to
for
share
it.
it with you.
Yeah, sure.
It sounds like you weren't taught how to think for yourself. And so that's a nutshell. So I'm going to break it down just a little bit. Okay.
Definitely.
So the first thing is that you were told what to do constantly. And so there was not an exploration of what do you want to do? Or if you had a question, well, how or why do I have to do that? If you heard things like, because I said so, or listen to your father, what it does is it robs you of curiosity. And so you second guess yourself because you have people that are telling you what to do instead of developing and nurturing that part of you that says, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And then trusting in your own way of exploring the world and going through the world and navigating situations and problems and stuff like that. It sounds like there might have been some negativity also because of your father's own guilt, and now he's putting it on you. He's projecting it onto you. And so I'm sure that there were a lot of feelings of like, I'm not good enough. And what happens if you're in an environment like that for a long time, there's a switch that happens, and it's not, oh, I'm doing this, so this behavior is bad. It switches into, I'm bad. I'm not good enough. And when it gets to that, place, it's easier to become a disappointment than it is to constantly search and reach for their validation. And so you kind of just give up somewhere you get so tired of trying and failing that it's easier to just give up. And so you can get the attention by being the messed up one. That's how you got attention. That's how you got importance, was of the things that you weren't able to do. It was a conditioned response, sounds like. Maybe. Does that sound somewhere?
Yeah, it does actually. I mean, the more you explain it, the more I'm thinking, in the back of my mind. So I remember times when I would tell my dad that I'd like writing, I was into poetry, that was my first real passion, if you like, just thinking, somehow I've got mental blocks. I can't remember everything about the past, although one should. And I just remembered my father was, just the family in whole were not keen. And then I remember as I got older in what we call high school, between the ages of 11 and 16, I became very negative. So almost to the point where I remember key things like, if we were to review a story, I would always be the opposite. So I became very opposite defiant, I did subjects, but I'll give you a classic example. This is really stupid, but we had a subject in English, and basically the English teacher said, right, we're all going to, you're going to pair up with someone, and you're going to fly to different countries, and I want you to explain which country you're going to. And I just clearly remember this, where it's really stupid, but I just remember with a colleague of mine, I said, when I told the teacher, I said, so she goes to me, where are you going to go? I said, I'm going to go to Scotland. Is the next country, which in the UK is made up of 4 countries: Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland. So I just said, I'm going to Scotland, and my colleague's going to fly from there to wherever she's going, which is, the Maldives, for an amazing thing. And my teacher said, well, why are you going to Scotland? And I said, why are you asking about a country? That is another country. That is my response. So I used to do a lot of that, it was almost like he wasn't expecting that. It was almost like, well, of all the far exotic places you could think of, or other countries like America, New York, whatever, Australia, you want to go next, like 200 miles away just for someone to fly. So the purpose of
Right.
of this particular exercise was you two have to find a way of getting to your respective countries and work together. Well, mine was very straightforward. We both drive in a car. It's like, I guess, on the border to Canada, and someone flies out from there. So I just remember I became very oppositional with things. I was very against, it didn't really matter if it was a boy or girl, but I came against them. My responses were not necessarily negative, but thought-provoking sometimes for teachers. And I enjoyed that. I don't know why, but I kind of became that way. So that was the sort of things I do remember about. Yeah.
I do have a theory with that too. Would you like to hear that one?
Yes, please.
Okay. So when you grow up in a place where things are told to you and you are not given the freedom of what we call choice, I don't get to decide for myself. And when that's put upon you at around 13 or 14, when you get that feeling of I need to stress my independence, you start realizing the word no. Because no to somebody who's been telling you what to do is a choice. Do this. No. And so there's a power there because you're exercising your power to choose. Because we are born with choice. It is our inherent power that we are born with and die with. We can't give it away. And even if we think we're giving it away, we're choosing to give it away or choosing not to use it. But choice is the essential power of every single one of us. And so when you were denied choice because you were dictated to, you exercised choice any way you could, which looked like being dismissive. It looked like doing the opposite. It looked like, I'm going to throw this out there, and I want to get your thoughts on this phrase, passive aggressive behaviors.
Yeah. exactly. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
have a sense of passive aggressive behaviors in your
Yeah.
life? Do you notice that?
I do understand what that means, and those behaviors are lessened as I've been, become older and I've had responsibilities with children and, in terms of having children and mortgages and whatnot as well. But yeah, I would agree with that. And just recalling certain things, when you're absolutely right, between the ages of 12 and 15, I became very defiant, and I started to not go to school. We call it truanting here. And my dad would be called into school, having meetings, and he was very angry. But somehow I didn't stop. It was almost like it became ongoing, to the point where I actually had I was thrown out of school, at 13, and then I was given another school, not of choice, but that's what the education body has to do. And it didn't stop. I carried on truanting. My dad was called into meetings, and I mean, I lessened over the last few years, humbled down. But yeah, I mean, it does. Those passive aggressive behaviors do, and even to the point when I got older, I challenged my dad a few times as well. He threatened to throw me. He did throw me out of the house a few times. I did end up being homeless for a while and stuff, but my mum would call me back. So it became more defiance. Yeah, passive aggressive. I think I link it in with saying being defiant, but not knowing why. But now I understand why. But I think it was my kind of way of dealing with it. It was almost like the more I did it, the more I felt in control. It's affecting my father and stuff. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. And you already mentioned that your dad said, go to school. That's what he expected and wanted of you. That was the rule. You go to school. So the best way to exercise your strength and your power of choice is to say, no, I'm not going to go to school. And so the more he tried to put that on you, the more you rebelled and said, no, because you weren't rebelling against going to school. Sounds like you were rebelling against authority, not giving you nurturing and encouragement. Not saying, good job, Tony. Great job. I'm so proud of you. That's encouragement. That's nurturing. That's building up your self-esteem. But instead it was, that's not good enough. And that's not good enough. And that's not good enough. At a certain point, you're going like, well, I'm just not good enough. And I'll never be good enough. And so to me, all of this makes total sense. If it makes sense to you, if this is does this resonate with you? I guess is the better question.
It does, yeah, very much so.
Okay.
And it does
And
make
so
sense.
I'm going to add to the passive aggressive. A lot of times people think it's just little micro things, but passive aggressive at the root of it shows itself in so many different ways. And one of the ways it shows itself is in self-sabotage. Passive aggressive says, well, I know I'm supposed to, so I'm going to do the best that I can. And then right before crossing the finish line, I'll stop. Because it's like giving the finger to authority, except the authority at this point is now you giving yourself the directive. I am going to do this. And so you go, okay, nope. And so that's where self-sabotage comes in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think as I got older and just thinking, not only was it parents, but it was teachers and it was even work as well. Just thinking those parallels were all there. And I kind of started to enjoy truanting, and being negative and doing the wrong things. Yeah,
it was
a sense of
powerful.
power. Yeah,
It was
very much so,
powerful.
yeah.
Yes, because
But
you
it was
did have a
also,
sense of power.
yeah, it was also, I guess when I look back at it now, it was also rewarding in a way. I don't know, I shouldn't use that word, but for me, I enjoyed doing it. It was also kind of a release. It was also like my way of kind of dealing with situations. But in context, I'm not saying everything was done, but it led to confrontations with the police on a few situations for different things, nothing major, but it was just that thrill and buzz at the time, I think is probably, but I think you're right. I agree with what you're saying.
I'm going to share one last thing, which I was going to say with I lost it. So if I find it, I'm sure it'll come back and I'll bring it up again. I think it's it was the domestic violence. That was the part of it. I would imagine if your father was an alcoholic and it sounded like there was rage and there was disappointment and there was force, what it sounds like is that his parenting style is what I would call what's the word when you're trying to put somebody down all the time?
Belittling me.
Yeah.
Degrade?
Yes, degrading. That's a good word. They were closer to the degrading part. That's, my brain is not really remembering the word that I'm looking for. But what ends up happening is, as a young child, when you witness domestic violence and you see one person being the person that inflicts pain, and then you see the other person who is the victim who receives the pain, at a certain point your mind says, well, which one? There's only two people in the world, and so which one am I going to be? Am I going to be an abuser, or am I going to be a victim? Right? And so it starts to play out a little bit more of one than the other, right? And so I'm sure what ended up happening was you got the idea, oh, the only reason he has power and I have to do what he says is because intimidation. That was the word I was looking for. His parenting style was the use of intimidation, which says, I'm bigger and I'm stronger, and so I control. And so what ended up happening is at a certain point, your mind says, oh yeah, well, now I'm bigger and now I'm stronger. So now I'm in control. And that could have been some of the conflicts that you had with your dad in terms of that. Sound about right?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think you're right. I think when I did grow bigger, if you like, or taller and whatnot, the DV lessened, the domestic violence lessened, because now I'm standing in front of my mum, and it became more verbal than it did physical, which kind of, I wouldn't say help, but you now see your mum not being hit, which changes things. Now you're speaking up for your mum against dad. Dad doesn't like it and he turns to drink, so drink becomes his haven, and that's how he dealt with things. But when I look at things, I mean, maybe his experiences with his own father probably was, dictated to how, like you say, his parenting style became. And unfortunately, the way our culture is going, coming from a then and a lesser developed India, mums didn't really know how to deal. They were told what to do by their own fathers. You'd be married at a young age, you have kids, and so forth. So it's something I experienced, watching, very much a chaotic, but family structure of sorts. And I think in some ways, by knowing that I could stand in front of my mum, it helped me a bit. It's kind of almost like I could not control, but now I could see my mum wasn't the victim as much as before. I think that helped me to sort of control my feelings. But instead of and this is a good point, actually, at a certain point between the ages of 16 and 19, instead of becoming someone who was being told, I became more angry. It sounds really stupid, but it's almost like the anger came out more, because it was almost like, why? Now the question is why. I was asking the questions why all the time. Parents grew up, my siblings grew up, we had, different life things, kids got married and so forth. But then I was less involved with my parents. I know it sounds stupid, but you know, when you get older, you've got other factors, and you've got friends, and you go out and do all the things. You get drunk and have a wild time or whatever. You know, you experience the life's situations. When I'm a young man, I'm going to college or university. I'm doing the things that everyone does. I'm sure everyone has. And I'm not so worried about my parents anymore, if that makes sense. I still love my mum, I still care for my mum, but I'm not bothered with my dad anymore. I mean, he'd come home drunk at different hours of the day. He disrupted the family more, shall we say that. Now it's not about controlling or hitting, it's just disruption. He'll collapse in the kitchen, or he'll collapse in the lounge or whatever it is. He'll be knocking at the door at 3 a.m. because he's forgotten his keys. He'll be drunk at 7 in the morning. So this is the sort of his last kind of years of life were very much that way. So I saw, life changes, but for me, I became more angry in the sense of, why is he doing this? Doesn't he learn? He's got kids, why is he not worried about his children? And as I'm older now and I look back, I do get more angry just thinking about the fact that, he should have helped me and helped my life. I wouldn't have struggled as much, and he would have helped my mum. But it's almost like we went backwards as a family because he wasn't there, if that made sense. But it was a learned experience for me, making sure that I don't go that way. And I don't drink, I don't smoke, but it was something I did at a certain stage of life as part of my, college and university life and stuff like that.
I have good news and I have bad news. Which one would you like first?
Let's do the bad.
Okay. Bad news is there's no bad news. Would you like good news?
There is no good news.
No, there is good news. The
There is
good
good
news
news.
is
Okay.
the only good news. There is only good news. You had mentioned that it's possible that your father was a victim of his father, and probably
Yeah.
his father before that.
Hmm.
Through your experience and through you asking the questions why, you have become the hero of your family. If you can understand this, what you have done is you have found a way to stop the process from happening and letting it pass on to your children, your children's children, and so on and so on and so on. Because you got to a place of saying, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this. And instead of following the path that everybody else before you had done, you decided to question it. And then you paved your own way. And so in paving your own way, you created a new path. You broke the chain of trauma, generational trauma. Do you see that?
I do, very much so. Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that, and when we've talked about it, yes, I do see that, and I am happy for that. And it's about change is always good. It's about embracing change. I think sometimes change is never good, but change is change regardless. And sometimes, it can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the situation. And I do agree with what you're saying.
Can I switch the word changed?
Yeah.
Can I replace it with the word evolve?
Yeah. I think because you're always learning, aren't you? So evolving all the time. Yeah.
Evolve to me sounds like growth.
Hmm.
Change is just a shift.
Yeah.
But evolution is the better version of yourself, and then the better version of yourself, and then the better version of yourself. So in that context, you've evolved out of that lineage. You've outgrown those trauma. Not to say that the experiences didn't happen, not to say that the effects of it aren't still present in your life, possibly, but you're wiser. You have evolved to a different level of understanding. if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. It does. Perfect.
Tony, I'm going to complete the slides just really quick, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about things after that as we go
Yeah,
through.
sure.
Is that okay?
That's absolutely fine. Brilliant.
All right. Let's keep going. Whoop, which one was that? Okay. So we're talking about dealing with toxic positivity. How do we deal with it? And I'm so glad that she showed up today, and I'm so glad that we're talking, because all of this kind of will make sense as we go through it. So how do we deal with toxic positivity? First of all, you have to recognize it. We can't change what we don't acknowledge. And so being able to recognize toxic thinking, right? The human mind and body is so complex that we can't make these overgeneralizations. I should be happy all the time. Or society says that because I accomplished these things and I checked off these boxes, that equals happiness. Well, no, it doesn't. And it shouldn't. And so if it doesn't for you, honor that. Definitely honor that feeling. So what we want to do is realize when there is a toxic way of thinking. Let's emphasizing positive emotions can be good, right? It could be a good practice, but it's important not to dismiss our other emotions. And I'm going to talk about that probably in the next slide, right? But this is again, the Instagram, the Facebook post. Oh, I'm living my best life. No, you're putting up a facade, and you want people to buy into the image that you're portraying, but you're hurting. And if you're hurting, wouldn't it be better to vocalize that you're hurting so that you can receive the help and the guidance and assistance that you need to heal? If we are constantly pretending that life is okay, we're not going to allow ourselves to even search for healing or for what could be better in our life. We also don't want to ignore our feelings. And so I'm so thankful and grateful that you were so open and honest about sharing your experiences. I really appreciate that. And I'm willing to bet everything I own isn't much, but if that somebody will hear your words and hear your story and will be better for it. Others will learn from your experience. Strangers, people that you will never meet, you will have a positive effect on them by simply being honest and acknowledging all of those unpleasant emotions, right? Because it is difficult to face our fears, our insecurities, and our vulnerabilities. But in avoiding our unpleasant emotions, it prevents us from acknowledging the problems that cause the uncomfortable feelings. The example I'm going to use really quick is mistakes. Society has a way of having us believe that mistakes are bad, that we shouldn't be making mistakes, that we should be ashamed if we make mistakes. And if you go to the root of really what a mistake is, all it is an intended result not happening. I was doing this, I thought this would happen, and it didn't happen. Something else happened. That's all a mistake is. But if you have the courage to sit with and recognize and acknowledge the mistake you made and sit with it, then you have the ability to learn from it. And if you learn from that mistake, then you're better for it. You've evolved. So now you're Tony 2.0, right? And some people are too afraid to even look at the mistake or admit the mistake. And so what ends up happening is they repeat the mistake over and over again. So Tony, I think you're ahead of the game here, because you're open and honest. You're talking very openly. This is the chance for healing, is for us to explore together, right? And look at all of these different things from different angles and see what is, what isn't, right? Let's continue. Emotions are basically road signs. They're telling us what's here, what's not there. And so a lot of society wants to tell us that emotion equals weakness, and it doesn't. Emotion is the body's and the mind's GPS system. It tells us, people want to believe in logic, and they should believe less in logic, more in intuition. But you're not going to be able to have good, solid intuition if you're not using it. And I would imagine, Tony, that if you were to really strengthen that sense of trust in self and start working and to develop that, your intuition would be so spot on that you wouldn't need to second guess any of the decisions you make, because your gut, that intuition, that knowing, that wisdom within would come forth easily and freely. That would be my guess. You also want to be able to acknowledge others' emotions. So validate their experience, because in validating others' experiences and not shaming them for it helps us validate our own experiences. So again, if you have the ability and the courage to come here and to speak openly and honestly, you're giving others the permission to do the same. And you're giving them that little bit of courage and hope that they can do it too. That's the beautiful thing. And this is why healing happens in groups. It happens with human connection, not in isolation, because we need each other to help see the different perspectives that we can have, right? Let's continue there. Empathy versus sympathy. I'm going to go over this really quick. There is a difference between empathy and sympathy. And really the difference is in how we relate to others. Empathy is really a measure of how much compassion and understanding we can give to another person. And it's our ability to understand how someone feels. Can I relate to your story, Tony? No.
Yeah.
I can't. I didn't live your experience, so there's no way I could relate to what you're speaking about. But can I understand it? I can try my best to understand it. And instead of me using sympathy, because sympathy is it's a feeling of pity. Oh, poor you. Oh, that's sympathy. And really what that's saying is, I feel so good that I don't have the same problems as you. That's just sympathy. And so we don't want to use sympathy. We want to use empathy. We want to say, I don't know what your experience was. I'm trying to use the best of my understanding so that I can understand it. But I don't mind listening to you. And if I have a question, I'm going to ask so that I can get a better understanding of your experience. And I don't have to fix it. Sometimes it's enough to just sit with you and say, I'm not going to go anywhere. Because sometimes in our dark moments, we just need comfort. Sometimes that helps. It's just that we're not alone. And so to have that is very therapeutic. It's very healing to have that. And so what we want to look is to be more empathetic with each other and with yourself. This is just an event that Jenny and our next event is going to be on March 18th. It's from 2 to 3. We're doing a hypnotic journey, reducing worry and anxiety. It's an hour-long sound bath. Jenny's going to be doing all the instruments, and I'll be doing the induction and all of that to reduce worry and anxiety. You might want to check it out. Tony, would it be okay to do some therapeutic hypnosis with you?
That's fine, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to ask for you to just sit back and close your eyes. I'm actually going to stop sharing. Okay. Oops. Here we go. I'm gonna. And so find yourself a nice comfortable position, and with your eyes closed, just take one big deep cleansing breath in through the nose and then slowly out through the mouth. And you can just allow relaxation to just slowly come forth. Just easily as you sit there. And I know sometimes it's difficult to relax or to learn how to relax more than you have before. And so as you sit there with your eyes closed and begin to become aware of your own thoughts, your own sensations, begin to wonder if you have ever had the pleasure of sitting on the bank of a river or on the shore of a lake or ocean, because there is something very comforting about just sitting there, listening to the peaceful sound of the waves as they move in and out in a continuous flow that just seems to go on and on, relaxing in the sun, feeling the soothing warmth, just letting the mind drift effortlessly and easily. With that quiet, almost silent sound in the background of awareness. I'm not even sure you've ever done that before. Relaxed in that way, listening to the peaceful quietness of water washing the shore. Perhaps it as a waterfall or just a silent place in the center of the woods. A happy memory of contentment or just a dream of a place so comfortable and safe that it was easy to allow the body to relax, everything to relax. I don't know, but I do know that everyone has a place they can go, a relaxing place deep down inside, where they can really let go of all of their cares and concerns and wonder at the wonder of those waves of relaxation, at the smooth heaviness of arms and legs As relaxation continues, and what if we were to allow relaxation, that energy from the universe, to slowly enter our bodies through the very top of our head? Maybe it has a beautiful color to it. Maybe it has a certain tingling vibration. Knowing that that energy of relaxation, as it moves through the body, relaxes all the muscles, allowing it in now as it slowly relaxes the muscles of the forehead. Just notice how relaxation continues to trickle down behind the eyes, and down the muscles of the cheeks, the muscles of the jaw. Just letting go more and more with each exhale. As relaxation, safety, and comfort continue to make its way through the muscles of the neck, slowly branching out through the shoulders, down the biceps and triceps, through the elbows, the forearms, all the way to the wrists, the palms of the hands, all the way to the tips of the fingers. And you might hear sounds around you, sounds inside the room. You might hear sounds outside the room. You might even hear sounds on my end. And that's okay. These are all just the sounds of life. They're unimportant. They don't matter. The only thing that seems to matter now is the growing sense of peace, sense of calm, safety, and comfort with each exhale, letting go more and more as relaxation, safety, and comfort continue to move down the spine and muscles of the back, through the waist, down the hips and thighs, through the knees, down the calves and lower legs, through the heels of the feet, the tops of the feet, all the way to the very tips of the toes. And I'm sure your subconscious mind knows of a place far deeper, safer, and more comfortable than where you're currently at. And I'd like for your subconscious mind to take you to that safe and comfortable place within slowly, as I count you down from 5 all the way down to 0. But don't arrive at that place completely until I say 0 or deep sleep. But we can begin the process now at 5. Letting go more and more at 4. And the deeper you go, the safer and more comfortable you feel. At 3. Deeper and deeper at 2. Letting go more and more at 1. And 0. Deep sleep. Letting go completely. And in the safe and comfortable place, what if to imagine ourselves as a blue sky? A big blue sky, feeling free and safe. Isn't it interesting how the blue sky is not afraid of the dark clouds or the white puffy clouds. It allows the clouds to come and go freely, knowing that as soon as the cloud enters, the cloud can leave just as easily. How interesting is that? Our emotions are just like those clouds. We can experience our emotions. We can allow them to drift in, stay to deliver the message it needs to deliver. And then with gratitude, allow it to leave just as easily as the cloud. No need to fear the cloud, because we are the blue sky. And this could bring more relaxation, safety, and comfort to every aspect of our life. Wouldn't that be wonderful? To have that sense of safety, calm, and comfort. Kind of like what you're experiencing now. And to bring that into your conscious waking life. And if you'd like to reinforce any of this, it's easy to do. You can allow relaxation to reinforce with each number as I count you up and out from 1 all the way up to 5. And at 5 being fully conscious and awake. Starting now with 1, slowly coming back. 2, feeling a sense of peace and calm and safety within. At 3, perhaps an uncontrollable smile forming on the face. At 4, returning to our body, into the room from which we started. And with the next number, our eyes will open, the doors of suggestibility will close, blocking all negativity, even negative thoughts that resonate in our mind. And 5, eyes open, wide awake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake. And welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Just do a little debriefing. Tony, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Take a few moments. What was that experience like for you?
Felt good,
Relaxed?
relaxed, calm, almost like in a state of peace. Yeah, very refreshing and calm.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Excellent. Well, we can use this imagery of a calm, serene place anytime you need. Okay. Jenny, I'm not sure if you were there or not.
I'm here. Can I
What was
share?
that? Yes, please. Please, please, please.
Okay. So, Tony, I totally believe spiritually that you were meant to join us today on this one-on-one group session, because I think, you know, you really benefited from it. And I just wanted to share my brief story with you guys. Most people don't know this about me. And so we'll run maybe 5 minutes over if it's okay with you both.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Great. So what I wanted to share is that in your situation, I have empathy for you because I grew up, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but I grew up in the same household. My dad, he was a drinker, but he was also a smoker. Unfortunately, I didn't have any siblings. I'm an only child. So I took the brunt of everything from him. My dad was very abusive. He was emotionally abusive and physically abusive. This is just me sharing with you, like, you're not alone. And you have the ability, like you already have started doing, to break those cords, to untouch those cords, and know that you don't need to be that person to your family, to your children, and that you're already on the path to healing. Because, you know, unlike you, your dad passed away in his 40s. My dad just passed away last year. So he was very abusive to me and my mom. And, you know, he would throw things at us. He would physically abuse us, basically, and hit us with things like sticks and basically whatever he can grab on. I remember, and this, you know, a lot of it reared up really quickly in our teenage life, because as a teenager, that's when you, like you were saying, you grow bigger and taller, and you knew how to stand up to him. And that's exactly what happened to me when I got bigger and taller. You know, there were times where I would just run away from home. I would leave for days, up to 2 weeks at a time, and I would go to my friend's house 2 blocks down the street just to leave my family. But what really broke my heart was my mom was still there. And, you know, it's her marriage and it was her choice to stay there. Even though there was numerous amount of times where I urged her to leave him. I urged her to divorce him for both of our sake. She stayed. And that's a cultural thing. You know, it could be a religious thing, it could be a cultural thing, but it was her choice to stay. And that really broke my heart. You know, I left when I was 18. As soon as I was done with high school, I graduated from high school. I found a college, I left. And my reason was, you know, I'm going far away, so I need to dorm. I needed to leave my house. And so again, I left for me, for my emotional well-being, physically and emotionally. And it broke my heart that I had to leave my mom behind. And she, you know, even after that, in my 20s and 30s, she, you know, she took the brunt of his abuse up until when she passed away. She passed away 4 years ago. And after she passed away, there was no buffer. She was my buffer. And I was with my dad for almost 3 years before he passed away. And it was just him and him and I, and he alienated all of the other family members because of his negativity, his toxic,
Yeah.
toxicity.
Yeah.
And so I just want you to know that the reason why I started my own healing practice is because I found a way. I found a way to make things better for myself. We're not always the best person. We don't always show up the best, but I want you to know that you are worthy and that you are worth it. So whatever decisions you choose to do or not to do, it's okay. It's okay to break those cords. And now that your dad is not here, but your mom is still here, I want you to know that, he's gone. So you can take everything that you learned, and most likely he didn't know how to be a man or a father based upon his own upbringing and your grandfather and great grandfather. It's all a lineage thing that got passed down. He never knew how to be the right person for you. But the great thing is you know how to be that person. And that's what really matters, is making yourself happy and knowing that you did your best and that you're going to continue to do your best in your work and your work for the kids that you do, for your family, for your own children, and any kind of future decisions that you make in life. And that it's okay, that you're not perfect. You didn't come from a perfect background, but you know what? A lot of people didn't come from a perfect background. And so, I truly believe that you were meant to be in the session with just you, with us,
Yes.
us three. And I hope
agree.
that you join us in our sound bath. And if not, we do host, monthly free group meetings like this.
Just like this.
Yeah, just like this. And so we hope that you join us next month and continue this healing process with us as long as it resonates with you.
Thank you. And I will.
Tony, I want to add to something that Jenny said and do a little reframe as well, is that it sounds to me like your dad wasn't allowed to be the man that he could have been. And it seems like you have the ability now to strip away all of those expectations that were placed on you, all of those demands that were placed on you that you never asked for. And now you get to evolve into the person that you were supposed to be. And I thank you for just allowing us to be a little part of this journey. I hope, we continue to be a part of the journey for you of healing, because I do believe human connection is the only way to heal. Honestly, Jenny, I didn't know any of that. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your vulnerability, both of you. I am better as an individual for having spent this hour and a half with both of you. Tony, I have nothing but wonderful, amazing feelings for growth and progress for you. Again, the image that's come into mind is the light at the end of the tunnel. And so much that you are the light. You are the light. I think Jenny said it really well. You're already on the path. And so continue, and you will find it. You will find the way into the sun, into the bright light of healing.
There's always light if you choose to look for it.
And again, I'm not here to dismiss any of your experiences. I really want to thank you. I think it's really important that we shared openly and honestly, and I couldn't have asked for a better participant. I am so thankful that you showed up today. Just to let you know, I'm going to share my screen one last time. If you have any kind of other questions or you want to get a hold of me, that's my number, that's my email address, that's my website. I look forward, I would love to hear from you either through Meetup or through Instagram. Or on Instagram at what is it, Jenny?
Hypno Heal Journeys.
Hypno Heal Journeys on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find me at New Mill Hypnosis, NUMILL Hypnosis, both on Instagram and Facebook. Tony, stick around. I'm going to stop the recording and then stick around because I want to have a couple of final words with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so thanks everybody for joining us. Hopefully you've gotten some good information out of this. Hopefully you've learned about something about yourself. And if not, hopefully you got a better understanding of maybe some people that are in your life and how to begin to heal with authenticity, right? So thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you again. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye. And you.